Let's talk to Shaun Bailey, Conservative candidate for Mayor of London. This morning it was announced that Crossrail's opening has been delayed once again. And another £1.1 billion is going to be needed to finish it. It's not going to be ready, according to the latest announcements, until 2022, which is absolutely unforgivable, really. Shaun, thanks very much indeed for joining us. Welcome.
Morning, Mike, and morning to your listeners. Of course, to anybody who's been following this will be no surprise at all. But the real pain is this loss was baked in day one of his mayoralty. Sadiq Khan put in a false fares freeze that didn't help the ordinary guy as to get to work or girl. What it did was help tourists. 640 billion lost, a £1 billion hole in TfL's finances. And why that's relevant, because to balance the books, TfL had to let go 30% of its staff, the very people that London needed, the very people that TfL needed to look after Crossrail. Fast forward 4 years, and here's a killer, Mike. We are a whole mayoral term behind with the delivery of Crossrail. All of this has happened under Sadiq Khan, and it's because of something he did straight away. So you fast forward now, we're getting an extra 1.1 billion, which effectively brings us up to 5 billion and 4 years behind in delivering this project. It's shocking, it's unnecessary, and Sadiq Khan needs to do better.
Somebody asked me the other week, funnily enough, about Crossrail and said, given what's happening in London, given the fact that at the moment London is pretty much of a ghost town when it comes to the actual businesses of the city. I know there are plenty of people on the streets because they live here, but the people who are not coming into London to go to work, is there any point in even finishing Crossrail at this juncture?
Right here, right now, definitely more than ever, Mike, and I'll tell you why. I know sometimes if you don't live in London, it's a bit annoying to keep hearing that London's the centre of the economy, but it's true, it is. And Crossrail will be a big project to push business and life along in London, and that will spread out across all the country. And of course, because we've had this COVID lockdown, we need to rebuild the economy, and London is the place to start that. We need to do our bit, and Crossrail was a big part of our bit. And that's why it's been so disappointing that the mayor didn't listen to anyone, and he won't take responsibility for anything. He constantly keeps talking about the government. Well, it wasn't the government that laid off 30% of TfL's staff, and it wasn't the government that didn't deliver didn't deliver Crossrail on time. It was him. And these things are important, not just to London, but to the rest of the country as well.
Yeah, and when he was laying off TfL staff, did he look at those many people who are on more than six-figure salaries to run TfL, which seems to me to be where you could make an awful lot of savings?
Of course he didn't. What he did, he laid off the staff that TfL needed. TfL needed this level of management to look after this project and many others. And he laid off the wrong people. And now we're in this really, really big problem. And any time the mayor talks about the government attacking London and punishing us, he should remember the government have bailed him out to the tune of 5 billion and counting. All of this is on his watch. Again, we're a full mayoral term behind delivering Crossrail on time and an extra £5 billion. And what that means for Londoners and UK taxpayers is less services and less investment, all because he did a vanity project for his ego that cost TfL £1 billion.
And as far as you are concerned, and as far as you know, Shaun, are they building and working on Crossrail at the same level as they were before the coronavirus hit, or has it all been suspended, or what?
I sincerely hope so. And here's the other anomaly, isn't it? They stopped for 2 months, and they had to. That was a correct decision by TfL to keep their staff safe. They stopped for 2 months, but yet we're an extra year behind. There's a 10-month differential there. And again, TfL find themselves in this tough position because the mayor won't give them proper direction. Because the mayor, day one, made a terrible decision that TfL have been running to catch up with ever since. I feel for TfL staff. They've bent over backwards to make London work, but they have a leader in the mayor who simply is doing things for his career and not for the benefit of London.
Yes, and I mean, the streets of London right now have never been busier with cars. They've never been busier with roadworks. They've never been busier with traffic jams. I mean, it's quite remarkable how bad the streets of London are currently running. But I was told by somebody the other day that they were in Northumberland Avenue, and there's a whole list of buses parked up Northumberland Avenue, like one behind another. Buses going around London with nobody on them. I mean, why doesn't he do something about getting rid of some of the buses on the streets so that people can actually get around?
The big problem we have is we're putting in a lot of cycle and walking campaigns to make the curbs wider so people can walk past social distance. That's fine, but a lot of it's being done without consultation. And of course, it's narrowing the roads at the very time when many nervous people or emergency workers have to drive to and fro.
Yeah.
And I think the miscalculated there. And again, he's closed many of the bridges or reduced the traffic flow over those bridges. And I think he's damaging London at the very time we need to get London moving, get London on its feet, get our businesses back. And whenever you hear me say the word business, please really put the word employment. I'm interested in people having a job to go to so they can, feed their families. And I think the mayor's completely missed the plot. He's lost the plot on how you get a city going so that people can keep their jobs.
Well, I found it incredible that last week he was out and about in sort of Oxford Street, suddenly demanding the government do more to get people back into London, when he spent the previous 2 months telling everybody to stay away.
The problem is he confused us. So let me take you right back. He was given a report long before COVID broke out about how dangerous the tube could be if something like that happened. And he buried that report, so he didn't respond properly. So at one point he was saying, get on a tube, it's fine, and it wasn't. Then he was saying, don't get on a tube, it isn't fine, and it wasn't. He wasn't giving his staff the protection that they needed, so they died at a rate of 5 times that of NHS staff. He's confused people, so now people are afraid, so they're keeping away. So what he needs to do is be very clear. We need London to open. We need people to get back to work, but make sure you do it safely. Employers are trying to help. The mayor should also try to help as well.
I'm sorry to put all these questions to you, Shaun, but I keep asking him to come on so that I can quiz him myself, and he keeps refusing. So, what can I do? But let's talk a bit about the crime rates as well, because we've seen during most parts of the lockdown, the police working very, very hard, trying to keep faith with what their jobs are asking them to do, but facing a rising tide of crime. We see these gangs of kids on bikes all over the place now. I see lots of groups of youths kind of growing in numbers, really, and just sort of hanging about on the streets. We see knife crime increasing again. What's his strategy for that?
I wish I could tell you. He doesn't have a strategy. And every time he announces something, it's piecemeal. It's not built. It's not together. Even when he starts talking about a public health approach, he had to be dragged to the table to get involved in that. But this is what I'd say to the public in and outside London. Don't panic. We can get on top of this. The police want to get it done. They just need decent leadership. They need to be given the political cover to do their job properly. I certainly would give that to them, because nobody benefits, young, old, black, white, gay, straight, from a dangerous London. We need to get on top of that first. So for me, job number one, day one, is to get on top of the growing crime problem in London. Anything from knife crime up to burglary and everything in between. We need to get on top of it because that benefits all Londoners.
If you were mayor, Shaun, would you get rid of Cressida Dick?
If I was mayor, Cressida Dick would be in a different situation because she'd had a proper boss who'd have been asking tougher questions. I can't say I'd get rid of Cressida Dick because Cressida Dick's problem is Sadiq Khan. She has had to respond to a mayor who, quite frankly, will throw her under the bus at any given opportunity to make himself look good. What I would have done with Cressida is maintained a good relationship, but also let her know I'm a critical friend, I'm her boss. And if London doesn't think she's performing, she'll have to go. But she can always defend herself by saying the mayor has been less than useless. He's really been poor.
Now, I'm asking everybody on today this question because I proposed it yesterday. Not everybody's a fan, but I've got a great idea for getting people back to work in London, and that is to give them all a month tax-free. So if you're staying at home currently because you think it's a bit frightening to come to London on a train, which is basically empty, and to come and work in an office, which your bosses may be telling you can't do, what if we gave everybody a month's free tax so that they didn't have to, so the gross income they made they could keep? Would that be a good idea?
Anytime someone suggests cutting tax, my ears prick up. So yeah, I'm into that. Look, the one thing I would say, a lot of people are not coming in because they're genuinely afraid. They're isolating. My mother, for instance, is in her 70s, quite a serious asthmatic. She does not need to get COVID. She's very clear about that. Right. But if you're saying cut tax to get the able-bodied back who could do it, why not? Because that tax would end up back in our economy, which will support the job growth we're going to desperately need going forward.